Hi, PGCPS parents. My name is Liz Faison. I am the Associate Superintendent for Student Services. I'm delighted to join you this evening for our first of many Wellness Wednesday sessions. The purpose of our Wellness Wednesday sessions is to ensure we are providing you with information as it relates to critical mental health and wellness as it relates to you and your student. And so today's first session will be on bullying, prevention, conflict, and harassment, what every parent should know as it relates to keeping your students safe and ensuring they have the right information to have a fantastic school year. And so today, when we talk about bullying, we'll discuss during this time together the new definition of bullying. We'll talk about how bullying incidences can be reported, as well as what are the strategies that Prince George's County Public Schools are putting into place right now to ensure we are addressing our culture and our climate as it relates to our students. Later, we will have a national speaker join us, Mr. Roger Dinwiddie, who will talk about the differences between bullying, harassment, as well as peer-to-peer conflicts. We'll also talk about the strategies that young people have noted were helpful around how to resolve their issues and keeping them safe and providing information to us that we need to know in order to keep our schools safe and bullying free. So before we go any further, I want to assure you that PGCPS is committed to ensuring that our classrooms, our buses, our hallways, everywhere that our children are safe environments that foster a culture of care and climate of mutual respect, cultural responsiveness, and attentiveness to the overall physical and psychological well-being of every PGCPS student, member, and employee. It is a part of our strategic plan and certainly a part of our PGCPS promise. And so as we look at bullying, our State Department of Education has changed its definition and language as it relates to bullying. The first aspect of the language that has changed is in the term victim. We no longer utilize the term victim. You will see referenced in our board policy as well as our administrative procedure the terminology targeted student. So what exactly now is bullying? In the past, the definition for bullying was a pattern or behavior when a person repeatedly uses power in an intentional manner, including physical, verbal, or written conduct that was intended through communication against one or more students. It was repeated over time, and it included an imbalance of power. The new state definition and now our local school system definition has been amended to include the following. Bullying is now considered the behavior that is intentional. It includes an imbalance of power as well as repetition. However, the newest changes to the definition includes that bullying behavior happens more than once or highly likely to occur again if it is revealed as such in the investigation. And so we want parents to be aware that our definition of bullying is more expansive. Our students should also be aware what bullying is, as well as the consequences of bullying. When we look at our Students' Rights and Responsibilities Handbook, that is the document that shows the consequences that are associated with certain actions. And so our parents are able to visit our website and view our Students' Rights and Responsibilities Handbook that talks about what occurs when a student has bullied another student. So we not only want to talk about what bullying is and what it looks like, we want to talk about what are the strategies and programs that PGCPS is putting into place to ensure we are addressing bullying in our schools. Each year, we acknowledge Bullying Prevention or Bullying Awareness Month in October. It is a national awareness. And around the world, school systems everywhere focus on what we can do to ensure bullying is not a part of our students' school experience. And our school system acknowledges this work in October. During the month of October, our schools launch campaigns. Our school counselors provide additional classroom guidance lessons to students. Our schools also launch different ways of utilizing the arts and making our message clear that our schools should be bullying free, they should be safe, and our learning environments should be conducive to educating our students. Every year, each school must submit an anti-bullying plan. This is a way that we know that each and every school is committed to ensuring that we have a plan in place to make our message profound around our school as it relates to the safety of our students. Additionally, we have positive behavior intervention and supports programs in our schools as well. We also have rolled out restorative approaches in several of our schools, and the training continues to grow and expand across our school system. 2 years ago, we invested in safe school videos for our students. In that video bundle for our students is a bullying and cyberbullying video. Additionally, our school counselors provide social emotional learning lessons to our students. Social emotional learning is extremely important as it relates to our ability to teach children how to resolve their conflicts, how to be a productive citizen in their school and in their community, how to build healthy relationships, how to problem solve. And we also talk about empathy and how our students are to be self-aware of their behaviors and have an awareness of how their actions impact others. What I also want to say is we not only want to see our students excel, but we know that once our students excel, our homes are supported, as well as learning becomes easier when our classrooms have positive learning environments. So what we also want you to know is that if there are instances of bullying that are occurring to your student, you can report those several ways. We now have a bullying app that you may download to your iPhone or your Android using the Stop Bullying Now search engine in your phone by going to the Apple Play Store and finding the app for PGCPS. You may report bullying that occurs to your student right from your phone. Your students may do the same, or someone in the community who is an observer or a bystander of the bullying incident may also download and utilize the app. Additionally, the Stop Bullying app has been pushed out to every single school's website, and you will visit the school's website and scroll to the bottom where you will see the black and red Stop Bullying Now icon. When you click on this icon, it will take you directly to the electronic bullying report. The last way that you as a parent or student may report bullying that has occurred is through the actual online web address. That address would be http:// stopbullying.pgcps.org. And so while we want all bullying incidences to be reported, we actually want our schools to be free of bullying as an incident. And so if you have questions about information that is shared today, you may email us at studentservices.br@pgcps.org. Again, if you have questions around anything that is shared today, you may reach us and send your questions to studentservices.br@pgcps.org. And so we have a special guest that comes to us from Nashville, who is a national speaker and a counselor. His name is Mr. Roger Dinwiddie. He's been the CEO Stars of Nashville, an evidence-based student assistance program as recognized by the National Registry of Evidence-Based Programs and Practices since 1986. Prior to joining Stars, Roger served as the executive director of a nonprofit organization working with juvenile court referrals. He was also a classroom teacher in the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools for 7 years. He's right now a certified prevention specialist, level 2, and more importantly, as it relates to our work tonight, he is a certified trainer and OVEAS technical assistance consultant for the OVEAS Bullying Prevention Program and Safe Dates Program. And he also serves as the Tennessee State OVEAS Coordinator in partnership with the Tennessee Department of Education, Clemson University, and Hazelden Educational Publishing. And without further ado, I give to you Mr. Roger Dinwiddie. After his presentation concludes, we will both rejoin you to hear your questions and to answer your concerns. And now, Mr. Dinwiddie.
Good evening, everyone. I am Roger Dinwiddie, and I am the CEO of Stars in Nashville, Tennessee, and it is an honor and a privilege to be with you all tonight to talk about a really complex subject. Thanks for the invitation. I look forward to being a part of Wellness Wednesdays with you. This subject is bullying prevention and what families can do about it to support our young people. First things first, remember, everything is not bullying, but it's important to remember that the vast majority of young people have not experienced the same kinds of bullying that our young people experience today. So as young people prepare to go back to campus and start school this year, a couple of things really important. We all want our young people to be successful academically, and in all of their school pursuits. We want them to be great in extracurricular. We want them to be great if they're athletes. Whatever their engagement is, we want them to be successful. We also want them to be emotionally and psychologically safe. So I'm going to give you 3 things that I think are important. 1, young people need to know that they are highly valued by others when they return to campus. Number 2, they know that they belong. They have a place to connect, if you will. And 3rd, they need to know that they're going to be physically and emotionally safe. And friends, I can't imagine anything different for us as adults. We want to know that we want to belong, we're connected, as well as we want to be physically and emotionally safe. And we certainly want that for our young people. So I start there with that kind of the basis of where we are tonight. So taking a look at that, realizing there are a couple things probably be helpful to know about what the data says about where young people are with the issue of bullying today. Bottom line, this is from the largest database in the world, the OVEAS Bullying Questionnaire. This data published in 2019 relative to the percentage of young people and frequency and prevalency of the issue amongst young people who report they've been bullied 2 to 3 times a month or more. About 17% of students report that they were directly involved, 12% being those who were harmed, and about 3% those who harmed others, and then 2% who both were harmed as well as harmed others. That's really important because what that says also, the majority of young people are not involved in bullying 2 to 3 times a month or more. And that adds to the equation of cyberbullying because that's another issue, obviously, that we're all concerned about. And I don't have enough time tonight in a short amount of time with you guys to go into all the details about cyberbullying, except just to say this. There has been a report of an uptick in cyberbullying over the last couple of years during the pandemic. And these two wonderful researchers, Samir and Justin, have done a great job of tracking cyberbullying for a long time. And you can see the bottom graphs, they show an uptick in both those who are harmed as well a downturn in those who report harming others. But in the middle of the page, you see that stat 2 to 3 times a month or more. About 6% of girls report that they've been involved in the equation, and about 4% of boys. So again, not overwhelming, but nevertheless, a couple of things important to remember. If it is cyber, there's so much more likelihood that this can go so global so quickly and bring about enormous amounts of pain and suffering for the young person, as well as for adults who might be at the receiving end of someone else's harmful behavior. So before diving into specifically what families can do, a couple of words about what schools can do. These are strategies that have been identified as very positive ways to address the issue. There are other strategies that can be found at stopbullying.gov related to best practices in bullying prevention, at least the 10 best practices, but I want to make sure these 5 at least get pointed out. Positive school climate, first and foremost. Safety, security, good culture, good climate. Secondly, bystander training. Focus on how to equip those young people that are in fact involved in the issue and support those who are witnesses to it by good bystander training. 3, we want to address harassment in all its form and help distinguish between the differences between bullying and harassment. We need appropriate and timely and appropriate, consistently administered restorative approaches and trauma-informed consequences so that we can stay away from this notion of just punishing people, because we're never going to punish our way out of this issue. And finally, last but not least, tiered approaches. We need stuff for everybody, for all young people in the building, for those who are involved, those who are not involved, and then we need specific interventions for those young people who need more support to help address this issue. So let's take a look at a few things families and caregivers can do to support the issue of prevention as well as intervening in bullying situations. First things first, understand terms. We need to be clear about what the definitions of bullying are. This is the CDC definition in the middle of the page, reminding us that, again, that everything is not bullying, and every time something happens that isn't pleasant doesn't mean that it's bullying behavior. Bullying is an unwanted, aggressive form of mistreatment among school-age kids that involves a real or perceived imbalance of power. It also is potentially repeated, or it is a repeated behavior. Cyberbullying, on the other hand, is a form of bullying. It is not a separate subset. It's simply another way that young people bully. It's just done online, as you can see in the Peter Smith definition. Probably one of the things more important about all of this is to distinguish between conflict and bullying. Conflict is inevitable. It's going to happen in our lifetime, whether we're young or old. Conflict will happen all the time in our life. The issue of conflict is we generally want to see it resolved when it occurs. Whereas with bullying, the desire is often not present to bring about resolution to the issue. In other words, there really isn't a strong commitment or effort to solve the problem if it occurs. Where with conflict, in most cases, there is an effort to solve the problem. Bullying is an issue of imbalance of power. Generally speaking, conflict occurs where there is an equal balance in power between the two people who are involved. So, summary, 4 markers of bullying. It's an imbalance of power. There's an intentionality to cause discomfort, harm. Thirdly, there's a threat, as was mentioned, about the potential for future regression. And then last but not least, Barbara Coloroso added to her markers the issue of terror, simply meaning young people don't know when or where it's going to happen, but they have a good idea that it may happen if they've been on the receiving end of it before. Young people also told us in the Alveus questionnaire that frequently they have been bullied for a long period of time. Those kids who are in fact involved in that group of young people who report being bullied, the 12%. Somewhere around 24, 25% of those young people have been bullied over the course of a year to 2 years. That is deeply traumatic for young people, which is why the next part of this will be looking at solutions for the young people who are harmed. Important to remember that there are definitely groups of young people who are much more vulnerable for being targeted, those who have some form of exceptionality, those who perhaps struggle with weight issues, being under or overweight, those who are questioning sexual orientation or have determined their sexual orientation or gender identity. Fourth, those who suffer at the hands of socioeconomic status, being picked on for perhaps not having as much, immigration status, and finally last, minority religious affiliation. Another item to be concerned about specifically is the issue of racial bullying, and all of this encompassed under the umbrella of protected classes. The challenge to understand is the difference between bullying and harassment and when that line gets crossed. If the issue is about a protective class, i.e., those young people who would be discriminated on the basis of race, gender, or exceptionality, we may be talking about an issue of harassment rather than traditional forms of bullying, because remember, the intent is critical when it comes to harassment. I may not mean to harm you by my choice of words or actions, but if you are harmed by them, on the basis of the issues that are listed in front of you on the screen right now, that may trigger a different sort of investigation on the part of the school. So as you look at this, guys, remember, bullying is a form of peer abuse. Bullying is a form of victimization. It is not mere conflict. It is no more a conflict than child abuse or domestic abuse. It fits more closely under that definition than it does under the issue of conflict. Remember, conflict is inevitable, violence and bullying is not. Second, we want to do everything we can to help our young people build connection. As Brene Brown says, connection is why we are here. We're hardwired to be connected people in relationship. And as Bruce Perry reminds us, there is no more effective neurological intervention than a safe relationship. My friend Derek Peterson also reminds me and reminds us that every young person needs people in their life outside of their family to support them. Strong relationships with caring adults in their life. In other words, the rule of five or the web of five, to be there to catch young people when things happen, because they will. The web of five means that young people have 4 or 5 adults in their life that they can turn to. Youth minister, someone in their mosque, someone in their synagogue, someone they can turn to perhaps in their faith community that can support them if something happens. Teachers, educators, counselors, administrators, those people who make up that important network of 5 people in a young person's life. Social emotional competency development is one of the core issues for us to be concerned about in the development of preventative tools to help our young people deal with this issue. And we as parents can model and support. And that is the development of empathy. The social emotional competencies, being cognizant of how our interactions impact others, how we make good decisions, how we solve problems, all important skills. And they're not soft skills. These are the skills for a lifetime, the other side, if you will, of the student report card. Not just that academics that are important, but also this other stuff that really helps kids be successful. As Brene Brown says, we need to dispel the myth that empathy is walking in someone else's shoes. We need to learn how to listen to the story that someone else is telling us about what it's like in their shoes and believe them when it doesn't match my experiences necessarily. Empathy is a skill. It's a social skill that can be taught, practiced, and applied and learned. It is not just a feeling. Empathy, one of the core preventative tools to help our young people know what to do when someone's being harmed and knowing also how desperately our young people need empathy, and they need to watch good models demonstrate it for them. That's one of our core issues as a family member, is to support the development of empathy within our homes. That leads directly to the bullying circle developed by Dr. Dan Alveus, probably the grandfather, more referred to as the grandfather of research of bullying in the world. Dan points out that when you look at the circle here, the core solution to this will be found on the students on the right side of the circle. Those who are willing, perhaps, to take action to support other people if they're bullied, the student in the middle, the student who's bullied. But one of the things we need to be clear and careful about is not making bystanders saviors through our bystander training. We need to empower young people to take safe measures. If they're going to step into a situation that's sticky and complex, we need to help them take safe actions, not fight back. That goes to supporting our young people in the development of healthy, important relationships. They need to also realize that simply using things like the I statement, like I feel blank when blank, may be useful in normal conflict, but they're not very helpful in the issue of bullying. Because frankly, sometimes the person who bullies doesn't care how you feel. That's the important part about it. There is a payoff for them to making you feel badly. So remember, those I statements should be counteracted rather than using I statements with statements such as stop it, knock it off, quit it. This is uncomfortable. I don't like it. I'm going to report it to somebody. So that's the second part. The next piece is making sure our children have a sense of respect in their lifetime, because kids who feel confident, if you will, are much less likely to find themselves as victims of someone else's mistreatment. Last, stress the importance of body language early. And finally, the process of negotiation, so that young people know how to navigate sticky situations in their life. Obviously, here's what doesn't work. The issue of ignoring it doesn't work. Blaming our children for provoking bullying. Nobody deserves to be bullied. Telling our kids to fight back, as was mentioned ago, because guys, in today's world, you are and I are not certain as the repercussions of fighting back, what that might look like with a situation where assault or bullying is heard, guys, because we don't know whether people have weapons. We're not sure what the countermeasures might be for somebody who might come back at us if we step up. Again, kids need to be safe. Finally, last but not least, again, calling the parents of the bully. Unless you are tight, very tight, great relationship with that family, it is strongly advised not to do it, because it can often result in far more complexities for our young people if we reach out to the parent and attempt to solve a problem. A couple other things. For our young people who are mistreated, they need great relationships with caring adults. They need somebody to hear them, obviously. They need somebody to protect them. We may need safety plans for our young people. They need strong friends. They need at least one good friend, as Mike Thompson says. They need a strong interest outside of their academic world, or a strong interest within their academic world where they can feel degrees of competence and success, because every kid, the resilient child, is one who feels competency. And finally, last but not least, they need to be found, they need strategies to help them get rid of self-blame or self-hatred. And guys, that may go beyond the scope of the school. That can maybe go to a therapist, to a clinician, someone in the community, someone in their faith community who can help them be rid of this shame that they feel for being targeted. And they need follow-up to make sure they're doing okay. So in summary, for those who are harmed, the kids who are mistreated, they need somebody to be able to tell what this has been like for them, somebody who will understand them and advocate for them, to get a glimmer of why in the world this is happening to me. They need to know that it's not okay, and they're validated for the pain they've experienced and the trauma they've experienced as a result of this. They need to know, if possible, if open to this, that the person who did it to them is sorry and wants to remedy the situation. Again, getting rid of their shame, They need to be connected with their community of care and support, and they need to be able to heal and let go. And if at some point possible, to forgive either their own self-forgiveness, that they need to be sure that they didn't do anything to deserve this, and also maybe even for the person that harmed them. After work, that's not a first strategy to say, forgive them. Heavens, they may not be able to do that, and they may not want to do that, and they may not be able to forget this, which is probably a good thing. Remembering is an important part of this. What do children who harm others need? They need great communications with adults. They need fair, consistent, and predictable consequences. They need full accountability without anger or rejection by adults. We've got to hold them accountable for the harm that they've caused. They need work in developing empathy. Again, that may come through an outside source, not just at the school. And last, they need to find some way to meet their needs without aggressive stances towards others. Kids who do mistreat others, young people who mistreat others, have got to come to this realization that they caused harm. In other words, they may need to develop a sense of healthy shame and guilt. I broke a rule. I got in trouble. I don't want to do that. I don't want to go through that again, and I hurt somebody. Guys, as adults, we all know we hurt somebody. We often feel guilt and remorse. That is a healthy thing. Young people who harm others need the experience of knowing that, but they need to be relieved of the burden of unhealthy shame. Finally, the last two, they need strong relationships with adults to be reintegrated back into their community of care so that redemption can begin to occur and again relieved of their burden of shame. They need respect from others, especially from the adults in their world. So I'll give you this, final takeaways. One of the things that I think is important language-wise is to stay out of the landmines. We want to make sure that we don't label kids. We don't want to put a label on a young person that can't be, that gets stuck, that we can't peel off. Shouldn't place labels here. One of my great friends and professors said years ago in school, labels are for jars, they're not for people. Number two, mistreatment is a word that I find extremely useful in this equation, rather than always calling everything bullying. Young people who are mistreated, young people who mistreat others, and young people who watch mistreatment. Everything is not bullying. We need to recall that, and perhaps even sometimes go to that mistreatment word before we automatically assume bullying. Final thought is this one. If speaking kindly to plants helps them grow, imagine what speaking kindly to humans can do. Remember, we don't have to agree on anything, but we do need to be kind to one another, because at the end of the day, kindness and empathy are the strongest antidotes I know to helping prevent bullying, and a skill that is a lifelong skill that can be taught, practiced, and applied. Looking forward to answering questions via the chat. Thanks so much for allowing me to be with you tonight. I'll look forward to responding to more of your questions in just a few. Thanks.